Hi, we're team Can't Wait to Graduate, and here's an update on how our project is going so far. So for the first sprint, we worked on documenting our project. We set up Swagger documentation for the API, UI documentation, and after we got the approval from the Scrum Master, we began trying to work on implementing them. So first I'm going to cover the API documentation through Swagger. So in our project, we're going to have 3 main calls. I don't think we're going to need, we'll probably add one later. So our first one is...
Increase the font size, please. Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So our first one is post to reserve a flight. So the parameters in this will have the username or the user ID to basically send in who is doing the post request, and then we'll mark that down in the database along with the flight info. So here we have an example. We'll have the username or ID, it'll probably be ID, the price of the flight, the carrier that's taking them, departure date will be here, carrier name, basically, and then we have the origin. So that will have its own ID, the IATA code, name, city ID, and it'll be the same as with the destination. It'll have the same traits, basically. Our next call will be get flights. Basically, whenever you go to the table page, it's still automatically called and displayed through the tables. Here we'll have a optional filter, so we won't have to create a new call. It'll just, if you send the request with the parameter, you'll be able to filter the data. So we have required inputs: origin place, destination place, outbound date. This is also optional. If you just put outbound date, we're gonna take it as a one-way flight. But if you have inbound date, we'll also make it where you go out and then you'll return a specific date. So the data will look something like this when we send it to the UI. We're gonna format this to, this data is coming from the Skyscanner API. So we're gonna format it so it's easier to process in the front end. And then this last one is get reserve flights. This will basically send the data. We'll have an option to check a flight that they would like to save for a later date. And to call this API, all we need is a username, and in the data tables, we will access every entry with that username or ID. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the UI. This is what Mitzel worked on. He's not here, he's sick today, so I'll just go over it briefly. So we don't really have any functionality yet, but here on top will be the navigation bar. You'll have your home tab, your search flights will bring you here. Your planner will send you to your reserved flights, settings like managing your profile, and I'm not sure what this is. So here we have like where would your destination or your origin, and then your arrival destination or your destination. And here we have the dates. You can just select one and it'll fill. And then here we might change this if you want a return flight or a one-way. Okay. Now we can look at some code. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, sure. So what we did so far was just to test out our external API. So we decided to use Skyscanner because it was free, and it also had pricing. All the other ones, you either had to pay or it didn't have pricing.
Can you guys increase the size of the font, please?
You know how to zoom in on that?
I don't have one.
has a presentation appearance.
Oh, right there.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so we just had a, this is how we, hit the APIs. We need a URL, and then you would just pass it a key because it requires a key, and then you also need its parameters. I don't know where it's like. Okay, yeah, so it says that it's gonna go from San Francisco to
John F. Kennedy.
John F. Kennedy, yeah. And then the date is February the 20th. So,
Yeah, so right now this is all hard coded, but we will add variables where you'll be able to call it, and then these will be changed.
yeah.
But this is just to see how we're getting the data from the Skyscanner API.
How do you run this so we can make sure?
Okay, yeah, well, let's explain it first.
Okay, so yeah, we created a REST template. So we need this to actually execute the API call. We threw some headers because Skyscanner requires you to use a rapid API key, and then it gives it to you like on the website. So we just hard coded it here. And yeah, this exchange actually is the process of calling that API. So it says HTTP GET. It's gonna be an HTTP GET method.
Yep. So here we're having all our business logic in the service folder. So now let's.
Let's actually call it so we can see.
Yeah, well, how the heck did this presentation go? Oh. Yeah. So now in our project, here's our controller. These are just testing, so don't worry about these, but basically we just return the flight service function into our controller right here. And our endpoint is get flights. So now we'll show you kind of how it looks like. Here we already have the Spring application is already running. And now we will call it with Postman. So,
Can you increase the font size, please?
okay, so our endpoint is API/get flights. So we'll call it here, and we will have parameters later about like all the data we require. So here is how the fetch data will look. You have your quotes, origin ID, destination ID, places. This is where you're going, and then your origin. It has city names, city IDs, country names, carrier IDs, and then we're not going to really worry about currencies. Okay. And we also created our models already. So whenever we're sending to the database, we will send it as we'll fill the database with these entries like origin IDs, destination IDs, the username, the price it was, and we'll assign an ID, and also the carrier name and ID. Okay, so now we'll talk about the test cases. Yeah.
So we have some test cases set up already. They're not covering all the code quite yet, but we're going to add test cases to cover all the code. So these are the test cases we have so far. These are
Let's go to the presentation then.
okay. Presentation. Right now, they're mostly focused on what we're going to do for the database. when we have data for a user that has reserved flights, these test cases test the get, post, and patch and delete operations for reserved flights associated with the user, and we use mocking using Spring's mock MVC framework in order to implement these test cases without depending on the actual database. We're going to add test cases for all the other aspects of our project, including the retrieving the API that retrieves the flights from Skyscanner, and the testing the formatter that makes it easier for the front end to process the data. Those are not here yet, but they will be added in the next iteration. And these will run using these tests will already run. Should I run the test?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So they all pass so far. It's able to query, create, update, retrieve, and delete, as well as partially update or patch an entity representing a reserved flight in our database.
Alright, now we're gonna talk about the MongoDB database.
So we set up MongoDB to save our flights for the flight planner. We have a cluster called Flight App, and within that we made some sample collections. So right here is the Flight App database with two collections, one for flight info and one for user login. The flight info has a sample document right here. This is a sample schema. This will change. And then same with the users. We're gonna have email and password, and we may add password encryption so you can't see the actual password. A benefit of no SQL over SQL is that it's not structured in tables, so each document can have a different schema. They don't have to all be identical to each other. And then, yeah, next week we're gonna try and connect MongoDB to our backend.
Yeah, so for next iteration, we're gonna focus on connecting the DB to the API. So what we'll be doing is we'll be focusing on the DAO layer now, and also we're also for the front end we're gonna work on calling our endpoint and sending the data we need, modifying the data so we get, like, if you want different, like, certain dates, basically the information from the UI to the API, and that's about it. And we'll also be working on test cases also. And that's what we got for next week, or next sprint. Thank you.